Right now, our National Bureau Chief, David Aiken, is in New York at the General Assembly, and he joins us live. And David, we're hearing some breaking news that Iran has actually issued a travel warning to Canada. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. So just after Ahmadinejad spoke, news emerged that Iran has told Iranian citizens don't travel to Canada because of rising Islamophobia. Not sure what the issue is. Perhaps we may not apologize for something. We might not say, Canadians are not the most violent of people or anything like that. But yes, that is Iran playing a little tit for tat, of course, because Canada, a couple of weeks ago, severed all diplomatic relations with Iran.
And David, take us through Ahmadinejad's speech today. It wasn't exactly the vile attack on Israel many feared it would be, but still, he raised a number of interesting points.
Yeah, it was sort of hate light. This is, I think, the 5th or 6th time I've covered one of Ahmadinejad's speeches to the UN. It's the 8th time and last time, actually, he'll speak. And this time around, just a little bit of nuttiness. For one thing, he said there is a worldwide Jewish conspiracy to prevent you and I and those in the media telling the truth about things. He also talked about the uncivilized Zionists, again a reference to Israel, who are threatening his country. Of course, Iran, everybody believes, is developing nuclear weapons, and everybody wants Iran not to do that, obviously including Israel. So those were a couple of the references, but mostly Ahmadinejad's speech was laced with religious references, talking about bringing love and peace to the world, looking for the return of the 12th Imam, a savior that is going to bring paradise to the earth. That's where he finishes his United Nations career.
And David, we know there were a number of protests in New York, a lot of groups calling for Ahmadinejad not to have the podium at all at the United Nations General Assembly. We do know Canada walked out of that room or wasn't even present for the speech. What was the reaction from other delegates?
There was obviously the Israeli delegation wasn't there. The United States was going to boycott it, and there were some protests outside the UN against Ahmadinejad. Notably, also some protests this hour against the president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi. He's speaking right now. He's just wrapping up, and there were some saying, Muslim Brotherhood out. President Morsi is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. He is the first democratically elected civilian from Egypt to speak to the UN General Assembly. That's historic. But again, in his speech, he's sketching out that he wants things to change between the Muslim world, the African world, and the rest of the world. Among other things, he's calling for a nuclear weapons-free Middle East. That would be aimed at Israel, though Israel has never admitted that it is a nuclear power. Everybody believes it has a nuclear weapon. Egypt's saying there needs to be a nuclear weapons-free Middle East. And that too would go to Iran. But Morsi also saying it's okay for countries in the region to develop civilian nuclear energy. So that's notable. Also, Morsi was also talking about doing more to combat Islamophobia around the world. He's taking note of this, noting this film that showed up on YouTube as the latest example that provoked all this violence in Egypt, in Cairo, and elsewhere in North Africa. He's calling that violence unacceptable, but he says the West and others must do more about this Islamophobia. So that's probably the most important speech that's happening today at the United Nations. What Morsi says, I think a lot of people are going to look at that. Egypt used to be a very important ally to the United States in the region. Of course, Obama's saying it's not really an ally, not an enemy. It's sort of in the wait and see where Morsi goes. So because of Egypt's strategic importance, I think a lot of people are going to focus in on that speech today.
Now, it is also important to note, David, that Canada's Prime Minister is not attending the General Assembly, and we know the U.S. President is not meeting with world leaders on the sidelines of these meetings. So what does that say about the importance of this global meeting? We have dozens of world leaders all together, but it seems these meetings that normally take place just aren't happening this year.
There's still a whole lot of meetings. I mean, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has said he's got 120 of them scheduled just this week. But it's true, Harper is not going to speak to the General Assembly. In fact, Harper hasn't spoken to the General Assembly most of the time he's in Prime Minister. He's only made 2 speeches in the 6 years he's been in power. Obama gave a speech here yesterday, then he gave another foreign policy speech just a few blocks away. Tomorrow, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaks, and Netanyahu wanted to have a meeting with Obama. Obama said his schedule is too busy. Harper will be in New York City tomorrow. He's getting an award, the World Statesman of the Year award. But even though he's going to be in New York, he's not going to speak to the UN, but he will have time to meet with Netanyahu, and he'll do that on Friday. So, world leaders, they use this to talk a little bit about foreign policy, but no, at the end of the week, no one is expecting that the situation in Syria is going to be solved, that the Muslim, non-Muslim world is going to find everything's happy and go lucky again. But it is an important week for leaders to sort of sketch out some markers on where they're taking their foreign policy.
All right, thank you so much, David.
Thanks.
That is our National Bureau Chief David Aiken joining us live from New York City.
This screen capture has been made for educational and entertainment purposes only. Grasshoppermedia.ca. This could be the next false flag, where a movie that was made on the internet divides the world into those who accept Shiite law under human rights to recognize religious convictions so that they can kill people who do not obey Shiite law. I'm sorry, I hope this doesn't get me in too much trouble. I'm not a Christian. I'm a young earth creationist. Merry Christmas.
Saying don't waste your hate, rather gather and create. Be of service, be a sensible person. Use your words and don't be nervous.